Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at the World Championships. Luis Scott Vargas, Jackie Lee, and me, Marshall Sutcliffe, we're ready for round 7. This is the final round of action here from day 1. This is going to set the stage as we work our way into day 2. Let's head down to the feature match area right now. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Championship here from PAX in Seattle. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Jackie Lee and Luis Scott Vargas, and we have reached the final round of day 1. We're playing modern. Let's meet our players.
Owen Turtenwald, United States, top pro points at large.
Larsson, Sweden, Pro Tour Magic Origin champion.
All right, welcome back to the feature match here. You can see that we're watching Owen Turtenwald of the United States. And Owen, for this modern portion of our tournament, has chosen Affinity, a popular choice here. His opponent, Larson, is playing Living End, kind of the other popular choice there. Both of these decks have showed up quite a bit. Matchup-wise, though, first thing to note here is that Yol is on 5. He had a mulligan down to 5 cards. Now, Luis, you said you've been playing a fair bit of Living End. If you know your opponent's playing Affinity, are you happy or sad?
You're overall sad because of Arcbound Ravager. That card is very difficult for you to beat.
Explain why.
Living End is trying to swap all the creatures in play and all the creatures in the graveyards, and Arcbound Ravager gives the Affinity player a way to sacrifice all their creatures and then have them just immediately come back. And
right.
As it turns out, Living End's creatures just aren't that great, and they can't beat an Affinity deck that just has a bunch of creatures in play.
Okay. Now, from the Affinity player's perspective, Jackie, still just beating down, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is probably just the plan until anything changes, right? That's always the plan, is to beat down.
All right, looks like we're underway here. Owen Turtenwald off to the fairly typical quick start of an Affinity deck. He's got a Vault Scourge, a Springleaf Drum, an Ornithopter, and now a Cranioplating equipped to the Vault Scourge, which is rumbling into the red zone here.
So, plan B for Affinity, by the way, is have your opponent roll to 5, be on the play, and attack with a giant Cranioplating on turn 2.
Yeah,
and also have a Ravager in hand, because that's another problem.
He finds a Mem Knight off the top of his deck here. Wow, he is going to kill Yol Larson in short order here. Yol had a pair of Street Wraiths to help try to find lands and kind of keep his game plan moving forward. Looks like he also cycled a Deadshot Minotaur, but is it too late?
Well, Yol doesn't even have a second land, so it's going to be pretty difficult for him to get anything going here. And even if he had a second land, Owen does, as Jackie said, have Arcbound Ravager. He just has everything in Arcbound Ravager on top of it.
Look at this draw from Owen Turtenwald.
It's pretty good. I mean...
Understatement from Jackie Lee here, and that's going to do it for game 1. Owen Turtenwald smashes Yol Larson, takes full advantage of that mulligan. We'll be back with more action after these messages.
The battle for Zendikar is coming to PAX Prime, and the Eldrazi are taking over. Join us Saturday for a special 1-hour Battle for Zendikar preview show hosted by Will Whedon and Ashley Birch, and featuring the Wizards of the Coast R&D team as they pull back the curtain on Magic's most exciting fall release ever. Put your game to the test at a Grand Prix. These open tournaments feature the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros from around the world. Upcoming Grand Prix events include Madrid, Oklahoma City, Madison, Sydney, Quebec City, and Beijing. Visit magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix for a complete schedule.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Seattle. We're here for the World Championships of Magic. It is a special event, and we're winding down the first day of action here. Let's head over to Seth Manfield versus Yuya Watanabe to take a quick look in to see what's going on there. And as it turns out, Yuya Watanabe is playing blue-white control, a deck you don't see that often in Modern, and Seth Manfield is on, we call it the Boggles deck, or Bogles, or Hexproof Auras, whatever you want to call it. He's on this mini battle cruiser deck, and you can see he's got a decent start here as well.
Yeah, Seth has been taking advantage of Core Spirit Dancer here to draw a couple extra cards. He also has a bunch of auras on a Glade Cover Scout, which Yuya's not all that well equipped to deal with, especially because he has Hyena Umbra, and Hyena Umbra is the kind of card that actually stops Supreme Verdict because it stops it from being destroyed. So if you were to cast Supreme Verdict, which normally would be great in this kind of situation against a hexproof creature, the Umbra's going to go away, the creature's going to remain, the Ethereal Armor's going to remain.
Yeah, this seems like a bad matchup for Yuya, huh? Like, these 1-drops get underneath the counter spells that he has, and then any of his spot removal just doesn't do anything.
It is tough. Yuya doesn't have a lot of cheap cards that can really interact with what Seth's doing.
Seems like a rough spot here for Watanabe. And he does look like he's behind in this game as well.
So one of Yuya's best plays here, especially since he's not even anywhere close to having the blue mana for Cryptic Command, would be to cast Restoration Angel. Still not quite enough to take down the Glade Cover Scout, given that it's a 4/4 first striker here, but it would give him a little bit more time. And Rancor, of course, is a huge play.
He's also drawing cards every single time here, thanks to that Core Spirit Dancer. One of them got Path to Exiled, but there was a replacement, and the cards are flowing now for Seth Manfield. And there's that Daybreak Coronet. Draw another card.
It's funny, this Daybreak Coronet is one of the only cards that Yuya can actually counter with his spell snares.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that, having played blue-white in the past.
Yeah, most of Seth's cards cost 1 mana.
And I guess Yuya's just watching this happen. He doesn't appear to have anything that can really stop Seth from just completely going off here.
Yeah, there's another Rancor and another card in hand for Seth, who is just, look at this, Glade Cover Scout.
It's a 14-power Glade Cover Scout, it looks like.
I don't know if you can really call it a scout at that point.
Yeah.
It seems like the entire army.
This is an Eldrazi beater here.
Yes, there aren't very many Eldrazi that could beat this Glade Cover Scout in a fight.
Oh, there's one.
There is one. There's always one.
So Yuya Watanabe confirming that it is in fact 14. But there is an Umbra on this Glade Cover Scout, meaning that, like you said earlier, Luis, the Supreme Verdicts aren't going to get the job done here either.
And a Restoration Angel is a good card, but it cannot quite stand up to the might that is this Glade Cover Scout.
How in the heck is Yuya supposed to beat this thing?
Well,
I mean, it's got lifelink, vigilance, trample.
Kind of got it all. He needs to string together a bunch of Cryptic commands, I guess, but in order to do that, he needs to start with a Mystic Gate, so Manfield's got to be feeling pretty good about this. And you can see in the upper right, it looks like it's Owen's turn to mulligan in their match here.
So Yuya's down to 5 life here, and it just doesn't look like there's anything he can do. He drew a Sun Titan, but can't cast it. Even if he could, it would just be too small. So
yeah.
Seth Manfield, with 6 or 7 auras on a Glade Cover Scout, gets the job done game 1, and he is going to happily trot into game 2 with a win under his belt there.
And, things don't get all that much better post-board for Yuya. He's got a Spellskite, but he's really leaning on that hard.
Now Spellskite's pretty darn good against them, right?
It is. I mean, that is a great card, but you'd feel a little more comfortable if you had 3 or 4 options instead of just 1.
Yeah, you know what? You said it a minute ago, Luis, and I think you may have been predicting the future again. I think Owen's going to 5 here. He doesn't look bothered by it. Not the first time.
Yeah, he is playing an aggressive deck, Affinity. So if he gets a fast start like he did last game, it could go pretty well for him. Unfortunately, because Affinity is another one of these linear archetypes that relies on having a lot of something, in this case artifacts, it's also tricky to go down to 5 or fewer cards.
And still put together that great start.
Right.
Yeah.
The fewer cards you have, the less damage your cranial plating can output.
Yeah.
Owen also doesn't look particularly bothered by this because of the fact that he's a seasoned professional here, and he tends not to display his emotions during the game.
Now, he is super straightforward at the table when it comes to that kind of thing. He's definitely seen it all.
I think Affinity is potentially a deck that can take advantage of the Vancouver Mulligan rule also quite well. If he has, a 5-card hand that's so-so, if he sees something like an Ornithopter on the top or a duplicate Springleaf Drum, he may just want to put that on the bottom, because the deck does have a bunch of enabling cards like that, which are relatively low impact.
All right, here's the 5-card opener now for Turtenwald. And he says, yeah, sure. Looks pretty good, too. He's got a pair of Vault Scourges, a pair of lands, and an Ornithopter. And wow, now a Cranial Plating joins the team here, too. It's actually a really good hand.
That is quite good.
Yeah, Affinity has the room to, be a card or two down and still just have a very reasonable hand. So it's going to more depend on what Yoel can present here than really what Owen can do.
Yeah, and, what is Yoel's best option? His deck just isn't that fast by nature, right?
It isn't, but there you see he's got at least one Ingot Chewer in his hand. And Ingot Chewer does a lot of work in this matchup. Actually, Yoel has a fairly good hand despite having a lot of lands, because he's got Ingot Chewer and Violent Outburst. So as long as he can find more creatures to cycle, I think he's going to be in a good shape, because Owen isn't presenting all that fast a clock. Like, the plating presumably is going to come out this turn, but Yoel still has a couple turns, especially if he goes ahead and uses Ingot Chewer on the cranial plating.
Right, and we see this, the Ingot Chewer doing this role. We've also seen it with Fulminator Mage taking out lands, where they use its ability to get it in the graveyard, get value from that, and then get it back again with Living End to do it all over.
Yoel might literally have a hand of Ingot Chewer, Violent Outburst, and all lands at this point, though.
Uh-oh.
Again, he's got some time, but yeah, that's a lot of mana.
Yeah, he's going to have to Ingot Chewer away the Cranial Plating here just to make sure he can stay alive. This deck doesn't need much. Like, you just get a Cycler going, and all of a sudden you can start churning through your library pretty quickly, but he doesn't have anything to jumpstart that process with all those lands in hand.
Yeah, but luckily for Yoel, getting attacked for 1 by a Vault Scourge and maybe an Inkmoth Nexus for 1 poison, that does not make you pull the trigger.
Now, what if he just goes for, he's got a Violent Outburst. I mean, he would get back Ingot Chewer, Street Wraith, Architects of Will. Is that not good enough?
Given that Owen has
9
Mulligan to
power?
5,
Yeah.
and that Ingot Chewer has already destroyed his best method of attack, I think that's pretty reasonable.
It seems good. 9 power. They're all kind of bigger than what Owen's average creature is.
Yeah, I think Yoel may be in a position where he's fine waiting, but is pretty happy just casting Living End now if Owen doesn't do anything to change the board.
I think too.
Yeah, well, now Owen's just all in on Yoel not having Living End, so now Yoel is very incentivized to cast it, because Owen has no cards in his hand, so this puts Owen down to 3 lands and Yoel up to 9 power in play. What Owen has to make sure to not do, and which I assume he is not going to do, is activate any of those Nexus, because otherwise Yoel gets to snipe those with the Living End as well.
And Yoel's just going for it right now. And this is the long process of revealing until he finally hits a Living End. He's got a Fairy Macabre there, and there it is. So you may look at these. Those are going to get shuffled and put on the bottom of Yoel's library. And bang. That's what this deck does. That's the essence of what he's trying to do. That's the broken synergy that this deck has thanks to Suspend and Cascade.
Architects of Will, ensuring Owen doesn't draw anything too good over the next couple turns. And it looks like...
Does Ingot Chewer kill it? Is that why it went away?
Yeah,
It is an artifact.
Is forced to do so.
It must kill an artifact. All right, well, that's a little bit of a non-bow for Yoel Larson.
1 poison.
But still, he has produced 6 power here. 3-turn clock, and he's left Owen Turtenwald with no creatures on the battlefield, so he's got to be happy with the result.
Yeah, Owen drew Spell Pierce. I believe next turn he's going to draw Memnite, and then the turn after that he draws Edge Champion, but presumably Yoel's happy if he draws creatures. He can just start casting them.
And there's Fairy Macabre. Hard cast. Go a little old-fashioned way.
2-2 flyer. It's no joke.
It can block an Ingmoth next.
Yeah, it actually isn't bad against the deck.
Yep.
He's going to cycle Architects of Will, find another land. He is flooding, but he's got the board state locked up here pretty cleanly. And looks like Owen is going to go ahead and trade off here for the Fairy Macabre. Still taking 6, though, dropping to 6 and leaving Owen dead to the board here, unless he wants to start chumping more. So, and that's going to do it. So Larson, he shows him how to beat somebody mulligan to 5 right back in his face, and we're going to get a game 3 here. So hopefully no mulligans for game 3. That would be ideal.
Well, fair is fair.
Take a look at our feature match area here. Let's take a look at Kentaro Yamamoto and Magnus Lanto here. You can see them on the right-hand side of our feature match area here. Magnus up a game. He's our Magic Online champion. Kentaro Yamamoto is here on an APAC slot. Man, it looks like by the time we get down there, it's going to be Living End having just resolved. So does this look familiar? We just saw Living End take care of business on our main match, and it looks like it's doing similarly here. A pair of monstrous Carabid looking to kind of clean up the board here, but Molten Rain here from
Snapcaster
Kentaro.
Molten Rain.
That's
Kentaro
a
just
good
going
one.
deep here.
I like that.
Yeah, we'll see who the real land destruction deck is.
Oh no, Ricochet Trap.
Wow.
Because there was a blue spellcast this turn thanks to Snapcaster, and this has a single target. He can trap it over. Oh no. So Ricochet Trap allows you to redirect a spell that has a single target to a new target. In this case, he's going to get to destroy one of Yamamoto's lands with the Molten Rain. He's going to take out the Desolate Lighthouse. Yuck!
Wow, that was a swing.
That is not what that card was brought in out of the sideboard for Lanto. That's usually counterspell defense, but hey, he'll take it.
I think it was actually primarily Molten Rain defense.
Yeah.
Specifically Molten Rain Snapcaster
Snapcaster,
defense.
because it doesn't work against just Molten Rain.
Yeah.
If you want to pay it for the discount. I've never seen that before. And there's a Fulminator Mage to add to the problems here, though. It looks like Magnus is going to let him keep all 4 lands here. It does give Magnus Lanto lethal through the Snapcaster Mage by keeping the 2/2 Fulminator Mage alive. So if Yamamoto can't kill something or block something, then he's dead on board.
And Yamamoto does have a Lightning Bolt in hand, so he's not just dead, but having to Lightning Bolt a Fulminator Mage and have it sacrificed to kill one of your lands, that, I almost would rather concede than do that.
I just got a shiver. That is not a happy thing to do.
Then again, when you're playing Splinter Twin, you've always got options. I mean, if Yamamoto just has an Exarch in hand, he can stabilize or at least buy extra turn and then cast a twin. But nope.
Yeah.
Looks like we're back on plan A.
Oh. Take out the green, one of the green sources here. And down they go. That's going to drop Yamamoto down to 2 anyway.
Lanto's just one redirected Molten Rain away from winning the game.
Oh, man. Did not think I would see that this weekend. Street Wraith. Just casting it. Another lethal threat here. And that will do it. Magnus Lanto defeats Kentaro Yamamoto. Yamamoto having a tough run of it here. He's going to be 2-5 now. 3-4 for Lanto, so not the ideal start, but he's still somewhere in the mix. He needs to put together a nice run tomorrow in order to make it work. Why don't we jump back to our main feature match before we miss anything, as the play is just underway, but as you can see, things happen quickly. especially with a Mox Pearl here, or Opal, excuse me. And wow, nice little start here from Turtenwald.
Yeah, Mox Pearl was last weekend at the Eternal Championships.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's not legal. But
Though in this
Opal
case,
doing a really good impression.
Opal's even better.
Yeah.
Opal can cast Thoughtcast and Galvanic Blast and Spell Pierce, all these awesome cards.
Oh, wow. I just saw that Owen has 2 Ravagers in his hand.
Oh, no, there's one of them right now. Owen making a big stand here. And there was no cycle there for Yul Larson?
No, Yul does have an Ingot Chewer and then a bunch of Living End Enablers, 2 Outbursts and a Demonic Dread, but he doesn't have any of the actual cycling creatures. So here you see a hand that is capable of casting Living End, a couple times even, but not a hand that's really making a ton of forward momentum. Ingot Chewer killing Ravager does something, but Owen still gets to redistribute the counter, then play another Ravager. So I think Owen's pretty happy with how this is going right now.
Yeah, this looks like a really good start. Like you said, he got some value there out of his Arcbound Ravager, even though it was going to die. And he gets to keep on crunching in here for reasonable amounts of damage. And also, again, noting that Yul Larson's not actively cycling creatures here. So there's that Ravager that you saw a minute ago, Jackie, and a Memnite as well. So a really strong draw here from Turtenwald. Yul Larson looks like he...
I think he drew a
Fulminator, yeah.
Which currently has no relevant targets because Darksteel Citadel's indestructible. So
Oh no, and his other mana source is that Mox.
I mean, it's a legal
Wow.
target.
It is a legal target. Jackie with the hard-hitting commentary here.
Well, Owen's board just looked so much worse before he played that second Ravager.
yeah, and Owen now has Cranial Plating, so he can
Wow.
go Darksteel Citadel, Cranial Plating, equip. You'll cast the Violent Outburst into Living End, but then Owen just gets all his creatures back into play, just basically as a fog. It doesn't actually accomplish anything. It gets an Ingot Chewer back, which eats one of the Ravagers, but again, the second Ravager is the one that's getting Yul here.
Right. At the point when all of his creatures, except for the first Ravager, were separated, that they were in play, and the first Ravager was in the graveyard, that was the moment that I bet Yul felt like maybe he would stand a chance in this game. But the second Ravager just means that Owen has total control over whether his creatures are in play or in the graveyard. So the Living End is comparably quite bad.
You get the look of somebody who's thinking the same things that you just said, Jackie. He's like, this isn't good for me. And he hasn't even seen the Cranial Plating yet. There it is.
And what the Cranial Plating does is it kind of forces the issue, because Owen is, is he a little short of lethal this turn? Is that even true? He's got 6.
He just played another Darksteel Citadel as well.
Looks like he's 1 point short of lethal, maybe?
All right, well, here it goes.
Oh, no, he's actually got exactly lethal, so...
So this does force Yul Larson to go ahead and fire off his Violent Outburst here, which is going to get him the Living End. But this is, like you said, it's like a fog, right? It's a temporary setback here for Turtenwald.
I mean, the one thing that Yul gets to do because of this play is he gets to put his Ingot Chewer back in play,
Okay.
which will allow him to destroy the Cranial Plating, which, Living End only deals with creatures.
Okay.
So that's one thing, but
Yeah, but then I agree. The Ingot Chewer is relevant here, but Yul's still going to be in a spot where Owen just has 4 creatures in play. Actually 5 now that the second Ravager's coming back. And Yul just isn't going to have a good answer to that.
All right, so here goes Owen Turtenwald sacking his creatures to the Ravager.
And now he has to decide whether he wants to sack the Ravager. So if he does, it comes back with Living End. So clearly that's an incentive. But he might be worried that Yul has Fairy Macabre. If he does, he maybe doesn't want both Ravagers in the graveyard at the same time. But
I'll let the Living End resolve.
All right, he lets it resolve. So, yeah, he did actually want to play around it. He figures this is a good enough board state, even minus the Cranial Plating.
so now that actually gives Yul a window where he can target the Ravager in play. And if Owen doesn't sacrifice enough things, then the follow-up Living End actually does something.
And does Yul have a follow-up Living End here?
He does. He's got another Dread and another Outburst.
Oh, wow.
And actually, unfortunately for him, a Living End in hand, which isn't great because it means if he's down to just 1 in deck after the one he used and the 1 in hand.
Exciting moment.
Indeed, Yul Larson. All right, he's going for the Ravager.
So given that he targeted the Ravager, Owen now has to decide how many creatures does he want to save for post-living end, how many creatures does he want to leave in play to pressure his opponent.
So Mem Knight down. That one he wants back.
That I think is an easy start because it does mean that that you still have flyers to fly over that Ingot Shore.
He's going to sack a Darksteel Citadel here. And the Ravager itself. So he's put together a nice board state, and he's really forcing Yo Larson once again to have and play another living end. Turtenwald takes 3 from the Ingot Chewer here, dropping him back down to 20. Doesn't seem super relevant at the moment. Larson's at 15 and looking to improve to 5-2. Whoever wins this match is going to put themselves in a good position to top 8. Randy was saying a little earlier that, you know, if you put together 2 5-2 days, you're in. And by top 8 I mean top 4.
That's twice as good.
Indeed. Larson's pass a turn.
So Larson got to smash for 3, but Owen has effectively 8 power in play once he attacks with both creatures because of the battle cry, and then cranial plating adding another current 5. It's not technically lethal, so Yol could try to wait an additional turn here if you wanted.
Numbers are being counted here by Owen Turtenwald.
Owen perhaps deciding whether he wants to play an additional artifact to threaten lethal here before Yol enforce Yol to pull the trigger on another living end.
So this is 15 power, if I'm correct.
All right, well, he says, yeah, that would kill me, so I'm going to go ahead and Violent Outburst again. He's going to do this. Now, so they run 3 of them, Luis? Is that the standard?
It is, and given the one in Yol's hand and now the 2 in his graveyard, that does not leave a lot of living ends left.
Do you want to pick this view? Sure.
Remember, this is game 3 here on Turtenwald, though. He's not going to turn down a chance to get a look at what else Yol may have brought in out of the sideboard. He could have one of those cards in his hand. And in the meantime, again, the Ravager, the Arcbound Ravager's just doing work against these living ends. I mean, the whole point of the living end deck is you're supposed to wreck creature decks when you resolve that spell, and Arcbound Ravager just makes it so that it's kind of a dent at that. I mean, look at Owen's board.
Yeah, Owen's boards after every living end look the same as they did before, pretty much. They're not getting smaller.
Now he has double Arcbound Ravager sitting there. This is a huge game for these guys. Coming into tomorrow at 5-2, ready to draft, ready to play some standard, knowing that you're on track versus some question marks in your head. All right, Fulminator Mage for Yo Larson is his play. Misses his land drop again, passes the turn over to Owen Turtenwald. Larson's still at 15, though.
Yol doesn't have lands, but also someone doesn't have spells. None of the cards in his hand do anything, so he's really behind here.
Yeah, living end is a very powerful strategy against creature decks, but unfortunately, besides like Fulminator Mage and Fairy Macabre, he just doesn't have that many flexible answers. And Ravager is certainly a huge problem.
He just drew a Deadshot Minotaur.
Yep.
He's going to cycle it.
And he drew the Fairy Macabre
And
too
he
late.
finds a Fairy Macabre, and that doesn't matter anymore, and that is the match. Owen Turtenwald, all business in the feature match area, and he is going to improve to 5-2. You know, I bumped into Owen in the elevator of the hotel, and I said, how you feeling? And he said, I'm going to win. He's confident.
He's told me that too.
Yeah. And so far, he's living up to his end of it there. All right, so let's jump back over here. Who have we?
We have Tiago Saparito here.
Yeah, you see Tiago on the right-hand side there. And he's playing against Martin Miller. Oh, there we go. We're going to game 3 here. We saw Tiago's Obs on deck last round. He played against Sam Black.
And Pithing Needle was very good for him last round. Here it's more of a stopgap, just trying to stop one of the cyclers, I would imagine. But for the most part, or maybe it did a lot of work last time. So it looks like a living end is about to go on the stack.
Yeah, it does look like that. Martin Miller, impressive start here, 5-1. And these are 2 of the least experienced players in the field as well. And they're sitting pretty here, 4-2 and 5-1 coming into the round.
So far this game.
Uh-oh.
I was thinking, I was like, wow, he's going really fast through his deck there. And then it looks like he actually flipped one card above the living end.
I think you.
Yeah, as much as I love Cascade, it is kind of awkward to resolve.
First, and then we'll end up. So this will be this. Shuffle this. This will be the top of your library, and then everything else here will be shuffled and will be the bottom of your library. Okay.
All right. So, you know, the deal with Cascade is that the revealed cards get shuffled randomly and then put on the bottom of the library. And he went one too far, but sometimes it gets a little weird because the bottom of your library is the shuffled cards from another from another Cascade, but it looks like they got it sorted out here.
And even though Scavenging Ooze is one of the cards you like to see against Living End, Scavenging Ooze is not that fast. So Tiago was able to play a Scavenging Ooze. Living End's happening, and Martin's going to have a pretty sizable advantage after this.
Well, Tiago doesn't have too much mana, and the Scavenging Ooze is really limited by the amount of green mana that you have. You can only activate it so many times.
Yeah, especially because this Living End deck, we've seen it time and time again, can fill up the yard very quickly once it starts getting that cycle engine going. It just dumps cards in the yard.
Yeah, sometimes you can outrace the Ooze with cyclers, and it looks like Tiago was forced to tap out for the Ooze here and just couldn't stop the Living End from doing, still a good amount of work.
All right, Martin's going to pass a turn back. The Pithy Needle's on Fulminator Mage here.
Tiago cutting into how much value the Living Ends have as they recurse Fulminators.
Those Fulminator Mages do serious work against a 3-color deck like Tiago's with so many dual lands, so many, lands that can become creatures later in the game. But right now he's got much bigger problems than that as he's facing down a mini army here for Martin. Looking to go 6-1 here on day 1 at the World Championship. That would be pretty absurd. Martin's like 17 years old.
It looks like a Tassiger here.
All right.
Funnily enough, Tassiger's actually big enough to hold back almost everything except Street Wraith. Street Wraith does have Swamp Walk, so it gets to get in there regardless.
3 cards for Saparito. Martin got here by being the captain of the World Magic Cup winning team from Denmark.
Which led to one of my favorite moments on Twitter of the Dane Blast.
The Dane Blast, indeed.
So Beast Within transformed Tassiger into a beast, which then traded for Architect's Will, which let Martin get in 6 points of attacks.
And there's a Lingering Souls for Tiago. We saw it do serious work against Affinity. It doesn't look quite as good here, though. It's going to buy him some time.
It is, but that Street Wraith is just going to keep on trucking.
Yeah. Yeah, Urborg, a problem here for Saparito. Architects of Will number 2 hits the graveyard for Martin.
Yeah, it's strange how well poised Street Wraith is against Urborg. Saparito's playing so many colors. He's really not playing basic swamps almost at all, except for that Urborg.
Yeah, that presumably would have snuck through that Overgrown Tomb eventually, but the Urborg does make it more of a guarantee.
Indeed.
It is always, again, really funny when you look at what the abilities are on these creatures, because clearly the Street Oath will get played even without swamps. It's just a 2-life cycler. But the fact that a swamp walk has been very, very relevant this game.
Yeah, Tiago's down to 10 life here, and we're winding down day 1. He wants to hang in there and try to stay at 5-2. And Muller's making it tough. They're also playing to be the only 4-0 modern player in the field here.
See, this is what I was saying a little bit yesterday about the Lone Wolves. So these players, relatively inexperienced, but if they have a deck that they're super comfortable with in Modern, they can definitely take that to great lengths. And it looks like that may be what has happened.
Well, Martin's actually tested with all the Europeans, so all 4 of them are on the Living End deck, which they're pretty happy with their choice. It looks like they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, Tiago ended up on maybe an unlikely testing team.
Tiago's team was a little less unified because
Yeah.
him, Paulo, and Strosky all just played different decks.
They all played different decks, and
But certainly having a team still helped them develop whatever list they ended up playing. So it's interesting seeing the opposite approach where, Team Thamo here decided, well, Living End's going to be well positioned. We're going to tune this Living End deck. We're all going to play Living End. It's all the same 75, whereas the Brazil plus Strosky Alliance all decided to play the decks that they knew the best.
Speaking of Living End, Luis, there's one on the stack right now, and look at the pile of creatures that Martin Miller is going to get back here. Whoa, now that's business. That's what that card is supposed to do. They build their entire deck around this interaction, and there's supposed to be a big payoff, and this is what that looks like. And now the worst part of it when you're on the other end is when they get to Architects of Will You.
Yeah, because you're already losing. Then you have to wait for them to look at your top 3 cards. They're like, I'll give you this one.
Yeah. The first one's going to do nothing. It's going to be a land every time. Then there was another Architects of Will. You can take a look at it on the right side of your screen. You can choose your library or theirs. And since he has 2, he chose his and Tiago's. And boom.
Well, at least there's a Scavenging Ooze back in play. That does something, right?
It does. Also, the fetch land. Tiago didn't even look. Such restraint. He cracks a fetch land to just shuffle away whatever it was that Martin did, but wouldn't you be curious to see how Martin stacked it? I would.
I mean, it just
couldn't
doesn't
help
matter,
myself.
right?
No, it doesn't matter at all.
Well, I always look when I mulligan.
You do not.
Oh, me too.
Oh, yeah.
No,
I
don't do
always
that.
look.
You do
Always
not.
look.
See?
It helps me internalize the probabilities.
No,
It did.
I like that excuse. I just look.
I don't look.
It helps me internalize whether I made the right decision.
No,
which is not how it's supposed to work.
I can't,
Don't worry.
I can't do this. So, Martin Miller has lined up 2, 4, 6, 7 attackers, but Tassiger up until now would have held them off. Not anymore. Here comes the team. Everybody in the red zone. Remember, Tiago's down to 6, so this is a fully lethal attack a few times over, unless Tiago has a heck of a lot of removal in his hand. I think he's got 1 Path to Exile. He cannot activate his Stirring Wildwood. Blocks 3 things, paths 1, and dies.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, the 2 Street Wraiths are unblockable as it sits because of Swamp Walk anyway. It looks like Martin's going to win this. Is there life to be gained here?
So even if
a
Tiago
Scavenging
manages
Ooze?
to pull this out, he's presumably just dead the next turn. I guess maybe he's trying to
No,
yep.
he doesn't have it, and Martin Miller is going to be 6-1.
That is an amazing record.
Right? Wow. Congratulations to him on a great start. He's going to have to come back and take care of business tomorrow if he wants to make a run for the top 4, but he's put himself in a good spot to do just that.
Right, being a full win ahead of the field is a very strong place to be.
Yeah, so, and a really strong showing as well. I mentioned it a little earlier in the broadcast. Welcome back to the booth, guys. Big Z, Mete Zadelkai, had done a lot of testing with him, and he was really impressed by how he played. I mean, again, he's young. He's like 17. Maybe he turned 18 or something since the Pro Tour, but he is a young man and, still has a lot to learn about the game. And Big Z said he thought his demeanor was good. He takes advice. He listens to players that are better or more experienced than him. And, you know, once you see an already talented player like Martin taking that advice and actually internalizing the things that he's being taught on the team, that's pretty scary for the rest of the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how their team did today as well. Just because when you have 4 people out of 24, that's a pretty significant portion of the field. And did they get things right? Were their choices good? And we're actually going to put that to the test tomorrow in standard as well, since standard is important because it's also the top 4.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for day 1 here. We're going to send it over to the news desk and Richard Hagan to kind of wrap things up for you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, thanks very much to Marshall Sutcliffe, Jackie Lee, and Louis Scott Vargas in the commentary box with the call for all the modern action. Rich Hagan sitting alongside Hall of Famer, brackets, number cruncher, Randy Buehler. Randy, the results are still coming in. There are a couple of matches out on the floor still happening. But now's a good time to sort of start doing the half-term grade, if you will, because not all records that look the same are the same, certainly in terms of player expectation. So here we go in scorecard order as the results came in. Brad Nelson won his last round to end the day at 3-4. Well,
yeah, I mean, he's still in it, but he really, if he could have, here's the thing with Brad, if he could get to tomorrow with a record above 500 when he gets to play standard, he'd be in great shape. So, I mean, of players at 3-4, I feel like Brad's actually in the best shape. You know, he avoided disaster, but, I mean, I'm sure he wishes he was in a little bit better shape.
Right, but a 2-1 in draft tomorrow, which would see him,
yeah.
heading into the last 4 rounds going, well, 4-0 should do it fine. And his minimum expectation would be 3-1, I think, in standard. So, I'm sure that's how he sees it.
Sure.
So, he defeated Li Shi-chan. Li Shi-chan goes to 2-5, who opened 2-1 in draft. That meant modern was 0-4.
Yes. 0-4, I saw him talking about, he completely misjudged the metagame. He thought it was going to be all Grixis control. He thought he could show up with a burn deck and just light everyone on fire. And then as soon as he saw, no, it's actually a bunch of affinity decks and a bunch of living end decks and Bogle's decks, he said at one point that he didn't think it was possible to play a tournament where 80% of your opponents were potential opponents, were bad matchups, but now he's done it. So all bad matchups and the 0-4 to go with it. So he unfortunately looks like he's going to be at the bottom of the standings like he has been the last 2 times he's played this tournament.
Right. Someone else who is really struggling, Arilax lost. He is at 1-6, and that pretty much is the end, right?
He is not going to be your world champion. I mean, at 2-5, you're hoping 7-0 is good enough. Right. You're not. It's not guaranteed that a 7-0 tomorrow is good enough. But I mean, you get to 9-5, you're probably in. Like maybe somebody misses at 9-5 on breakers, maybe they all get in. 2-5, you can at least go to sleep and dream.
Okay, so here's someone at 2-5 who can go to sleep and dream. 2-time and reigning world champion.
How great would that be?
Shenha.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Shahar won his last round.
Against Ari, yeah.
Defeating Ari to stay alive. But yeah, so his 7-0 is actually an 8-0. If he pulls it off, having won this one here, how insane would that be?
That would be amazing. But someone who can go to sleep and dream from a much, 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 much better position than that is Seth Manfield. Because as we've seen, he took out Yuya Watanabe in the last one. Now Yuya, let's talk about him for a mo. At 5-2, utterly business as usual.
Which is absurd. How could 5-2 at Worlds be business as usual? And he's on track to top 4. That's where that's his average finish at this tournament is like 4th or something, 3rd.
Yeah, 2-1 tomorrow morning, 7-3, 2-2 in standard, 9-5. In we go, top 4. See you Sunday.
Just so good.
Yeah, but
so good.
Beating him, Seth Manfield 6-1. And I tell you what, I'm delighted to say that waiting for us across the studio is Brian David Marshall, who is with the 6-1 Seth Manfield.
Thanks a lot, Rich. I'm sitting here with Seth Manfield. Seth, you're at 6-1. You're coming into this tournament, though, at 0-0. What were you thinking about coming into Worlds?
I mean, I just wanted to prepare. It was myself, Ari, Brad Nelson, and Steve Rubin. And I did a lot of Modern Masters drafts. That was sort of the format that I thought I could get an edge, and I was really happy it was just the first format. I love to go green, white, And I mean, obviously it went well for me there. I was a little nervous about Modern today just because I hadn't really played Boggles much, but you know, I give a lot of the credit to Steve Rubin and Ari as well for really grinding out games while I was, you know, at home with my daughter and my girlfriend. So.
All right, you want to wave and say hello to
Yeah.
Eve?
Yeah, hi Eve and Jenny. But I mean, I feel great. Like this is my first time at Worlds, and I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better to start off with. So, you know, I'm hoping tomorrow goes obviously just as well.
I don't want to give you a swollen head here, but you know, one of the players people kept mentioning when they talked about, you know, someone they were wary about playing, you know, was Yuya Watanabe. That name came up over and over again. Well, you beat Yuya Watanabe over and over again today. You were his only 2 losses.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's some luck involved in this game. I don't know. But.
All right, so what's the plan for tomorrow? How do you feel going into Magic Origins draft? How do you feel going into Standard?
Feel solid about Origins and solid about Standard. You know, I feel like I'm ready to go to work tomorrow. I don't know.
I mean, you said that when you were coming into this tournament, you thought Modern was your like sort of the shakiest pedestal in your row there.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually done well. Like I did top 8 of Modern Pro Tour. I just felt like this particular Modern format, I wanted to play Burn, but I just know like I wasn't gonna do that. So I mean, I didn't want to play Twin either. So I was sort of scrambling. It was basically just not having reps in with the deck that scared me a little bit.
But you think it was the right deck for this tournament?
I was not expecting to play against Living End, which was my only loss on the day. I mean, that's a miserable matchup, but I was expecting Affinity. There's a ton of Affinity, and it was nice to start out 3-0 because that meant like some of the control players that were also high up, like Sean McLaren and Yuya. I played against them in the last 2 rounds, and control is just exactly what I want to be paired against with Boggles. So.
All right, well, Seth Manfield, you're one of our leaders overnight, which means you have a lot of responsibilities to attend to before we'll let you go home. So I'm going to let you get to them, and I'm going to send it back to the news desk with Rich Hagon and Randy Buehler.
All right, thanks very much, BDM. More results coming in. Randy, a trio of 4 threes. Sam Black, Eric Froelich, Paul Rietzel. Happy-ish?
I mean, they're happy-ish in that they were 3-3. They're sort of working their way up the standings. I mean, Eric was 1-2. I think at 1-2, if you offer him a 3-1 in Modern and, you know, go to bed at 4-3 overnight.
Rietzel also 1-2 in draft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll take it. I think that they're content. Their tournaments are very much alive at 4-3, and especially given the, you know, the scuffling that they did in the draft portion, they're content.
Now, we talk about players, their results are not always equal. Here's some 3-4s. Steve Rubin, Martin Dang, Jacob Wilson. Now, for Dang and Rubin, that's maybe 1 win under what they'd have liked a positive record for sure on day 1. But for Jacob Wilson...
He was 3-0.
He was 3-0.
Over lunch.
0-4 in Modern for Jacob Wilson.
Yeah.
A runner-up in a Modern Pro Tour, mark you.
And it's not even his first Worlds.
Right.
Yeah, no, very disappointing afternoon for Jacob Wilson. That 0-4, that's definitely.
But it doesn't stop him making the top 4.
I got to talk about Sam Black for just a second. 4-3 for Sam Black. We saw that feature match. I was just the Girapur Aether Grid tech that he and Paul came up with. It seemed like the perfect Sam Black encapsulation moment, right? Sure. He comes up with this amazing technology. The internet is like, wow, that seems perfect for the Infinity sideboard. That's spectacular technology. And then Tiago randomly has a pithing needle to just shut it down. So it's like the perfect Sam Black moment. He comes up with the amazing technology and then almost wins, but can't quite close for some reason.
Yeah, and you can be almost certain that another teammate in that scenario doesn't face the pithing needle.
Yeah, but I mean, he and Paul are both 4-3. I mean, they're still very much in it, but I mean, I don't know, it just felt like it encapsulated all these Sam Black storylines somehow.
All right, well, we've had one 6-1 player over at the comfortable chairs, taking it easy after a very good day at the office. Here's a young man with the World of Magic at his feet, not just the World Magic Cup. The World Championship could be on the horizon for Martin Muller. Let's hear from him with Brian David Marshall.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with the World Magic Cup captain of the winning team, Martin Mueller. So you've had your invite for this tournament locked up for as long as Shahar.
Yeah, like it's the last invite from the World Magic Cup. I'm trying to do what I can with it.
Have you been? What have you been thinking about all year long as you've moved towards this tournament?
I think like at the start I thought like I would use a lot of time on it, but it's just impossible. Like I could do a lot of Mod Masters draft, and I did so, but like Modern and Standard, and obviously Magic Arrogance draft was kind of new, so that was only like the same time that most other players had. But like Standard and Modern are shifting too much, especially Standard.
Oh yeah, Standard every week, right?
So I don't even think like I have prepared that much more than Joel. Like it's pretty hard when format shifting so much to like preparing that long time.
So as the weekend finally gets here, you know, all these months later, and you're about to play in the tournament, where were your expectations you put on yourself for this tournament? Do you come in here and you go, I'm going to be the overnight leader, I'm going to win this tournament? Is that where your mind was?
Always.
Is it?
Like, I don't know. Like, I actually think I have a problem sometimes playing GPs and stuff, because I really have a tough time playing when I have really bad of like figuring out where my opponent is. Like, I really like to like know my opponent. If he does this, either it's a bluff or it's because he has this. When it's so random, I really have a tough time playing against that. So I kind of thought that that's a chance that it would be easier for me to play in this tournament.
So the more perfect your information, so for example, knowing what your opponent's deck looks like because you're exchanging deck lists, being able to scry, the more information you can get, the better you feel going into a match.
Yeah.
Talk about your team a little bit for this event. Team Tomo, you guys, so this is, I mean, really coming into this, of all the teams that are here this year, you guys were the winningest team. You had the World Magic Cup, you had the Magic Online champion, and you had 2 Pro Tour champions on the team.
Yeah.
Were you guys, you know, the clubhouse is starting to get a little crowded at Team Tomo, right?
Yeah, but like I think the team is really good. I also think at the last PT we had like better players. I think at the PT Brussels where Martin won, it was kind of like probably not the perfect testing, but it was like we still got a really good result. Like obviously he won, but like I think like the testing process itself was really good, and it just got even better at the like the latest PT, even though I like scrubbed out. And I expect that it's just going to be better and better.
Okay. So I'm going to let you get to the act of being photographed, interviewed, written about, all that stuff before you can go eat dinner. So Martin Mueller, congratulations. More good games tomorrow.
Thanks.
Sending it back to the news desk with Rich and Randy.
All right, thanks very much, BDM and Martin Muller, one of your co-overnight leaders with Seth Manfield. Randy, the last couple of results are in. Big match, potentially, for Final Four. Sean McLaren against Paula Vita Dama DeRosa. DeRosa, having been what felt like really quite ahead of the curve throughout, has sort of ended up at what I think will feel a disappointing 4-3.
Yeah, so that means if we cut to top 4 right now, Sean McLaren would be in it.
At 5-2.
At 5-2. There's basically 5 players on 5-2+, and he's one of them.
Right, okay, because we've got Martin Muller 6-1, we've got Sean McLaren 5-2, Owen Turtenwald, who defeated Larson there. Do you know what? I think we should get to the end of day wrap.